He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rise, but when the gun was drawn, the whole city held its breath. He pushed the door open with one hand, slow, not theatrical, just measured, the kind of entrance that didn't announce itself, but still somehow made the room notice. Not the man, maybe, just the weight he brought with him. Arnold Schwarzenegger stepped into Lancaster Bistro like someone who wasn't quite sure if he belonged or maybe just didn't care anymore. A heavy wool coat framed his shoulders, charcoal scarf tucked loose around his neck. His boots sounded like they remembered harder floors than polished tile. Warmer places, too, perhaps. No one clapped, no one whispered, but a few heads turned the way people do when something unexplainable shifts the air, like a change in weather. The hostess looked up from her tablet, confused for a beat. Her mouth opened, paused, then offered table for one. He gave a slight nod. Back corner, if that's all right. She smiled polite, mechanical, led him past tables dressed in white linen and conversation. Jazz rolled from the ceiling, something smoky and old. Maybe Coltrane. He didn't check. The corner table was small, facing the window. The kind of seat reserved for writers, widowers, or men who used to give speeches to crowded rooms. He sat with a quiet exhale, not tired, not relieved. Just still. The waitress came next. Bright smile rehearsed. Our special today is, he interrupted, gently, Wagyu, dry red. A pause, then she nodded and left. He didn't open the menu, just placed one hand on the edge of the table. The other reached into the inside pocket of his coat and retrieved something small, a leather notebook, aged and creased at the spine. He laid it down softly, like it might bruise. For a long second, he didn't look at anything else, just the book, a memory bound in worn brown leather. There were initials faded on the bottom corner, ill, errors, barely visible now. His thumb traced over them, slowly, almost unconsciously. The window beside him reflected a version of himself that was older than he remembered. Fuller face, eyelids lower, the kind of aging that doesn't show up in movies. He adjusted slightly, as if trying to fix the image by changing his angle. Didn't work. Behind him, cutlery clinked. Glasses chimed. Someone laughed too loud, not at him. Or maybe, hard to tell. He rubbed the space between his brows with two fingers. Not from pain, more like habit. The notebook remained on the table, unopened, untouched, but not unspoken. Outside, traffic moved like always. Inside, he waited, not for anyone in particular, just for the room to settle, for the silence to take root. He had no plans to make noise. Not yet. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The door slammed, not closed, slammed. Sharp enough to make the jazz hiccup. A glass somewhere chimed too hard against a coaster, then went quiet. Forks paused mid-lift. Even the air changed, not colder, but thinner, like someone had opened a window you couldn't see. Arnold didn't turn, didn't need to. He could feel it, that vibration of arrival, the kind that enters before a man does. The footsteps that followed were heavy, clipped, not hurried, just purposeful. Boots, maybe, thick soles, the kind of walk designed to remind people there's someone coming who doesn't wait for permission. The man passed the bar, didn't glance around. He knew exactly where he was going, straight toward the corner table. Arnold finally looked up. The uniform was the first thing he registered. Then the posture, chest forward, chin set too tight, not casual, calculated. Officer Ryan Blake, younger, broad-shouldered, clean buzz cut, the kind of face that still clung to the football field or wished it did. Mirror sunglasses indoors, badge angled just so, catching a sliver of sun from the window. His hand hovered near his belt, not resting. Exactly. Just claiming space. Blake didn't stop until he was practically standing over the table. "That's my seat," he said. Not a greeting, not even a question. Arnold blinked slowly, turned his gaze down to the chair beneath him, then back up again. "No plaque on it," he said, calm. Even Blake didn't smile. "I sit here every Tuesday." Arnold lifted an eyebrow. "Then I suppose today's an exception." The officer leaned forward, just enough to cast a shadow across the wine glass. "It's my table." Silence. Then Arnold tilted his head just slightly. "You planning to call it in?" Blake's jaw tensed. "You don't look like the kind of guy who belongs here." Ah, there it was. Arnold didn't react right away. He let the words hang, sour and obvious. Then he glanced toward the notebook, still resting beside his hand. The initials L.S. caught the light just enough to remind him why he wasn't going to move. He looked back at Blake, still managed to find the steak. A couple of diners nearby shifted. One pretended to cough. Another checked their phone but didn't unlock it. The kind of moment people didn't want to witness but couldn't stop watching. Blake straightened, nostrils flaring. "You sure you want to make this into something?" Arnold didn't answer. "At least, not right away." He sat back an inch, just enough to show he was still comfortable. "Wasn't planning to," he said. And then, after a pause that barely lasted a breath, "But you already did, didn't you?" The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense, charged, like a storm hadn't started yet, but the sky had definitely changed. And no one, absolutely no one, had gone back to eating. Blake was still standing, but the threat hadn't moved. Not forward, not back, just stayed, hung in the air like humidity, heavy, inescapable. Arnold didn't shift, didn't flinch. His eyes had drifted again, not toward Blake, but to the notebook. His thumb found the edge of the cover, ran across it with a kind of muscle memory that didn't come from habit, but from loss. His fingers moved as if they were retracing something, a sentence, maybe, or a voice. The jazz kept playing a little off now, like the piano was unsure of the moment. He remembered a different song, different place, somewhere near Pasadena, years ago. Warm afternoon, not a bistro, more of a sidewalk cafe, shaky wooden table. Sun too bright. Lucas wore sunglasses too big for his face and kept pushing them up with the back of his hand while sipping ginger ale like it was a cocktail. "You're slouching," Arnold had said. Not harsh, just matter of fact. Lucas grinned. "It's posture for directors. Haven't you seen Spielberg at a lunch table?" Arnold smiled. "Barely. Spielberg doesn't slouch. He observes." "Well," Lucas said, tugging his chair an inch forward, "I'm learning." There had been a camera on the table, small, scratched, the kind that still used SD cards and made a faint whir when zooming in. Lucas had gotten it secondhand, refused to upgrade. "Tell me something," he asked, halfway through fries. "How do you make the ordinary feel important?" Arnold had paused, caught off guard by the phrasing. "You mean in a story?" Lucas nodded. "Yeah. In film, in life, either." Arnold had stared at him for a moment. The wind was rustling the paper napkins. A dog barked from across the street. And Lucas, he just kept chewing like the question wasn't impossible. "I guess," Arnold finally said. "You don't?" "Not exactly." Lucas waited. "You let it be quiet," Arnold added. "If people feel something in the quiet, then it was already important." Lucas had blinked, thought it over, then reached for the camera. "That's going in the tape." He never did finish that tape. A week later, he was gone. Arnold exhaled the kind that doesn't move much air, but empties something inside. His thumb stilled on the notebook. The shadow of Blake hadn't moved. Still looming, still waiting for a reaction, but now there was something between them. Not spoken, not visible, even, just present. A boy once asked how to make the ordinary matter. And this moment, this corner table, this badge-heavy silence was as ordinary as it got, until it wasn't. Arnold looked up again, and this time, when he met Blake's stare, he didn't just see a man with a badge. He saw the world that took his son and forgot to apologize. The standoff wasn't loud. That was the strange part. No shouting, no fists. Just two men, one seated, one looming locked in a silence thick enough to hold a room hostage. It might have gone unnoticed, except it didn't. 2 tables over, a boy maybe 10, maybe younger, sat in a booth by the window. He had one of those oversized hoodies that made his arms look like noodles. Face half shadowed, eyes wide. Both elbows rested on the table. A phone between his hands, tilted up just slightly. Recording. Arnold didn't look at him directly. He didn't need to. He caught the reflection in the window pane, the faint outline of a rectangle held still in small fingers. The boy wasn't just watching, he was documenting. Blake hadn't noticed. His back was turned, too focused, too sure. The boy's father, a waiter with tired eyes and an apron too long, stood frozen near the espresso bar. He was drying a glass, but his hands had stopped moving. The cloth just hung there, like even it was waiting. Arnold's eyes flicked back to the notebook. He didn't touch it, just acknowledged it, then glanced again, not quite at the boy, but near enough to send a message. I see you. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to steady the boy's grip. He remembered that look. Lucas had worn it once. That exact look. A quiet kind of concentration that didn't come from fear, but from needing to understand something. Arnold blinked. A fragment returned, uninvited. Lucas, age 11, filming ants marching across a crack in the sidewalk, completely absorbed. Why this, Arnold had asked? Because no one else is. Lucas replied, eyes glued to the viewfinder. Someone has to see it. That boy, the one with the ants, he had grown up into someone who still believed the camera could catch truth before it disappeared. And the system had swallowed him before it could finish the shot. Arnold's jaw tightened, not anger, just ache. Blake shifted his weight above the table again. Still looming, still waiting to be feared. You're making a scene, he said suddenly, voice low, but pitched for the room. It was a lie, a cheap one, but it did what lies do. It rippled. A murmur passed through the bistro. Nothing said outright, but everyone heard it. Arnold didn't blink. He simply turned his eyes back to Blake and said, quiet as steam, not yet. There was no tremor in his voice, no sarcasm, just a simple, unshakable fact. And behind him, across the room, the boy's phone kept recording. Small hands, steady frame, silent proof. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the room isn't the man with the badge. It's the one holding the truth and refusing to lower his camera. Blake moved again. Not far, just a half step closer. But it was enough. His belt brushed the edge of the tablecloth. A fork shifted. The jazz overhead faltered for half a second, like the speakers sensed what was coming. Arnold didn't move, didn't breathe loud. His hands stayed exactly where they were, one near the notebook, the other resting flat against the polished wood. Calm, anchored. You think being quiet makes you noble? Blake asked, his voice sharpening. Makes you right. Arnold blinked. Once, then eyes steady. He glanced not at Blake, but at the window. At the reflection, he could see the boy, still filming, still watching. No, Arnold said quietly, but it makes the noise easier to recognize. The words hung in the air like steam off a kettle. Brief, but scalding. Blake's jaw clenched. His eyes twitched behind those mirrored sunglasses, which he still hadn't removed. Maybe they made him feel untouchable, or maybe he just didn't want to be seen. He reached up and slid them off. That somehow was louder than anything he'd said so far. Underneath red-rimmed eyes, restless, something unmoored behind them. Not rage, exactly, something more brittle. worn thin from too many confrontations that had always ended the same way, with obedience, with fear, but not this time. Arnold watched, saying nothing, letting Blake feel the weight of the moment all by himself. "You think you get to come in here," Blake snapped, voice rising now. "Act like you still matter." Arnold didn't flinch. "I didn't say anything. You didn't have to." That part was true. Blake's hand drifted toward his belt again. And this time, it didn't stop. A sharp click. Leather creaked. And suddenly, metal. The gun was out. Drawn. Held low. But visible. Too visible. Someone gasped near the bar. A knife clattered onto a plate. And the entire restaurant stopped. No music. No movement. No pretending anymore. The glass in front of Arnold half full. Red wine catching sunlight trembled. Not from him. From everything else. The ripple moved once, then settled, still again. Arnold looked at the barrel, then at Blake. His voice, when it came, was barely audible. "You sure about this?" No bravado, no challenge. Just a question, the kind that didn't need an answer to sting. Blake's grip tightened. "I said get up," but Arnold didn't. Instead, he reached one finger toward the wine glass and steadied it with a touch, as if that was the only thing worth saving. "You don't scare me," Blake spat. "I'm not trying to," Arnold replied. "You're doing that on your own." And just like that, the power shifted. Not loud, not fast, but undeniably. Because there's something far more dangerous than a man with a gun. A man who doesn't need one to win. Blake's hand didn't waver, but the gun, it trembled, ever so slightly. Not from weakness. From the wrong kind of certainty starting to crack. Arnold didn't speak, didn't blink. He sat still, as if the chaos had already happened, and he was only watching the echo. His right hand moved slow, deliberate 2 inches across the table, toward the phone. No sudden motion, no threat, just gravity, memory, and purpose. He tapped the screen once. A soft chime, almost polite, barely rose above the silence. Most people didn't even hear it. Blake didn't notice. But somewhere far beyond Lancaster Bistro, a dormant system woke up. Code silent. Not a 911 call. Not a panic button. A protocol. One Arnold had helped draft years ago, when he still believed systems could learn to protect what mattered. Back when his title still meant rooms went quiet the moment he entered. That belief had died with Lucas, but the code remained. It sent a signal to 3 terminals in LAPD's ethics division. One to a secure line inside Chief Harper's pocket. Another to a hidden sub-network no one ever advertised a network for when words failed, and proof was needed fast. Arnold set the phone down again. Face up, calm, as if it had never moved. Blake hadn't noticed. Or maybe he had, but the barrel of the gun hadn't lowered, and that was all that mattered. Arnold looked at the glass again. Still. Balanced. Another flicker came, then a memory. Not forced, not asked for. Lucas. On a Tuesday. Rain outside. Camera in his lap. Open to the settings menu. He was frowning. Arnold had walked in late from a meeting. Tired. He'd barely said hello. Lucas looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure, if I filmed something wrong happening." But no one saw it. Did it happen? Arnold had blinked, halfway through removing his coat. "What do you mean, I mean, if truth happens, but we don't catch it? Was it real enough to matter?" Arnold had chuckled, lightly. "You thinking too hard again?" Lucas didn't smile. He just whispered. "Maybe not hard enough." That was 3 days before he was gone. The footage from that week confiscated, lost, explained away. Official words were used. Unrecoverable. Incident under review. Nothing conclusive. But Arnold remembered the look in Lucas's eyes when he said that last sentence. The one he couldn't unhear. Now, here in this upscale bistro with white linens and weaponized silence, a boy across the room was filming. No edits, no cuts. Just truth. This time, it would not disappear. Arnold looked at Blake, then at the gun, then back to the reflection in the window, not of himself, but of the small phone held steady in a child's hands. History, this time, had a witness, and the system finally had been warned. The gun didn't move, but something inside the man holding it was starting to knot all at once, just barely, like a thread pulling loose from somewhere buried. Arnold could see it, not in the weapon, but in the jaw, the breath, the blink that took 1 second too long. Still, the danger hadn't passed, not even close. And yet, Arnold wasn't looking at Blake anymore. His eyes had settled on the notebook again. The corner had curled slightly, the leather worn to a softness that only years or grief could shape. He reached out, not to open it, just to rest his palm gently across the cover. His thumb moved over the faded initials. L. S. There were things he still hadn't said aloud. Not once. Maybe he never would. But the memory didn't wait for permission. It arrived uninvited, like it always did. That night, Lucas had been editing something hunched over his desk, headphones too big for his ears. The glow of the laptop screen made him look younger than he was. 17, but soft in the light. Arnold had stood at the door, silent, watching. Lucas didn't see him. He was whispering to himself, timing voiceover, practicing narration. Sometimes a story doesn't need music or movement, just a still frame, long enough to make you look. Click, scrub, repeat. Arnold stepped away before he could be seen. He doesn't remember why. Maybe it felt too intimate. Or maybe he was just late for something. Again. He never heard the full tape. Because there was no full tape. The next day, Lucas had gone out to film, downtown, sunset, just him and the camera. He didn't come back. There was a misunderstanding. That was the word they used first. Then suspected weapon. Then resisting. No footage was ever released. No badge ever suspended. And when Arnold asked to see the memory card, an officer shrugged and said, it was damaged in processing. The funeral was quiet. Lucas wouldn't have liked it that way, but there was no room for protest left in Arnold by then. Just formality. Just silence. The kind that doesn't feel peaceful, just unfinished. Back at the table, the wine glass caught a streak of light again, a deep red halo. Arnold's hand returned to his lap. His jaw flexed once, then stilled. Across from him, Blake still stood, breathing harder now, like he couldn't tell if he was angry or scared. Maybe both. You're not doing anything, Blake hissed. Arnold met his eyes again. Neither are you. A flicker. Insecurity. Maybe. Or doubt. And somewhere in that flicker, Arnold saw something awful, the exact same look Lucas must have seen the moment before the shot was fired. It broke something in him, quietly, without a sound. And that, more than any threat, is what made him stay in his chair. Because silence hadn't saved his son. But maybe now, just maybe, it could expose the noise that killed him. The room hadn't moved, but something inside it had. People weren't chewing anymore. They weren't pretending this was just a tense moment between strangers. They were watching openly now, not with morbid curiosity, but with a quiet kind of reverence. The kind that comes when something dangerous is unfolding and no one knows how it ends. Then the speakers clicked. Not loud, just a soft static pop overhead, the same system that had been playing jazz 20 minutes earlier. A voice came through. Firm, deep, unmistakable. Officer Ryan Blake. Blake froze. Put your weapon down, the voice said. You are being recorded, and you are no longer in control. The air shifted, tangibly. Someone near the bar gasped, not from fear this time, but recognition. Blake's mouth opened slightly. He turned toward the ceiling, as if the voice might be coming from God himself. It wasn't. It was Chief Samuel Harper, the man who had helped Arnold write the Code Silent protocol, the one who still carried the weight of every name that didn't survive a badge. Blake stepped back half an inch. Gun still raised, but arms shaking now, not visibly, but just enough that Arnold could see it in the fingers. The wine in the glass trembled again. Arnold didn't speak. Didn't need to. He watched as Blake's confidence started to hollow from the inside. His mouth twisted like he had something to say, maybe an order, maybe a denial, but nothing came. Comply now, the voice continued, or escalation will follow. A long pause, then another voice. Real, in person. You're suspended. Ryan, it didn't come from the speakers. It came from the front door. Chief Harper stood there now, in full view, no uniform. Just presence, the kind of man who didn't need rank to command a room. He stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Blake turned, and in that turn, everyone could see it the shift. He wasn't the threat anymore. He was the warning. Harper didn't shout. He didn't posture. He simply walked up to the table, eyes on the man still holding the gun. Put it down, he said again. Blake hesitated, and in that hesitation, his authority crumbled, bit by bit. Then, with one final breath, he bent down, not fast, not forced, and placed the weapon on the tablecloth beside Arnold's wineglass. The metal made a soft sound, not a bang, not a clang, just a quiet surrender. Arnold didn't flinch. Harper nodded once. Your badge, he said. Blake's hand moved slowly to his chest. He unclipped the badge, looked at it, then at Arnold, and without a word, he dropped it. Right on the notebook. It landed with a soft, metallic thud. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of judgment, of release, and of something long overdue. And this time, when Arnold looked around the room, he didn't see fear. He saw memory forming. The gun was gone. The badge, too. But neither had been the loudest thing in the room. It was the silence after, a kind that didn't beg for applause or rush to explain itself. It just settled, like dust, like gravity, like something that finally had permission to stop struggling. Arnold didn't move. The notebook lay in front of him, still closed, still marked by the shape of a badge now taken away. The leather had absorbed it, the weight, the echo. No one cleared the table. No one dared. Blake had been let out. Chief Harper didn't look back. He didn't need to. The room had already recorded everything that mattered. Phones were still raised, but hands were steadier now, not filming a threat. Just a moment. And then, quietly, the boy stood up, the one with the phone. He stepped out from his booth, the oversized hoodie bunched at his wrists. He walked slowly, like he wasn't entirely sure if he was allowed. His father didn't stop him, just watched from behind the bar, mouth tight, eyes too full to blink. The boy came to the edge of Arnold's table, stopped, didn't speak. Arnold finally looked up. Really looked. There was no fear in the boy's face. No smile either. Just a question, the kind too big for words. After a second, the boy gestured toward the empty chair across from him. Can I? Sit. The voice was quiet, throat tight. Arnold stared at the chair. It had been empty the whole time. And for a moment, maybe just a flicker, he saw Lucas there again. Same shape, same question. He nodded. The boy slid into the seat carefully, as if the chair had rules. He placed the phone down on the table. Screen dark now, but the camera still pointed upward, like it hadn't quite stopped watching. They sat in silence for a while. Then the boy spoke again. My dad said you used to be in movies. Arnold didn't smile. Not fully. Still am, he said. Sometimes. The boy frowned, like he wasn't sure if that was a joke. Was this part of one? Arnold shook his head. Not this. The boy looked down, then back at the notebook, then at the badge. He leaned forward slightly, voice softer now. I filmed the whole thing. Arnold met his eyes. There was something fragile in them, not pride, not triumph, just a need to know it mattered. I didn't know why, the boy added. I just, Thought someone should. Arnold exhaled a small breath, but heavier than it sounded. It's good you did, he said. And then, after a beat, because next time someone says it didn't happen, he tapped the dark screen of the boy's phone with one finger. You'll have the footage. The boy nodded. Not fast, but with understanding. The kind that sticks. A week passed. Then another. The footage surfaced 2 days after it happened. Not just one clip, dozens. From every angle. Different phones. Same moment. The gun. The silence. The badge. The boy. Someone edited it into a clean 3-minute video. No voiceover. No music. Just raw. It was called He Didn't Flinch. It hit 2 million views in 12 hours. People debated it. Of course. Talk shows dissected every second. Some called Arnold a hero. Others called him lucky. A few called it staged until the raw file from the boy's phone silenced them all. Officer Ryan Blake was placed under investigation. Suspended without pay. Charges followed. Chief Harper didn't say much to the press, just confirmed the system responded as it was meant to. Arnold. He didn't give interviews, didn't sit for any specials, didn't write a column. He disappeared again, until one morning early. Before the city got loud, he walked past Lancaster Bistro. He didn't stop to look in, but his eyes caught the reflection in the glass anyway. New staff, new lighting. The piano in the corner was playing again, something soft, gentle. The table in the back corner sat empty, clean, waiting. He didn't go in. Instead, he kept walking. 2 blocks down, through a quiet street, to a small building with no sign. Inside, a group of community leaders sat in a circle, a mix of educators, reform advocates, youth mentors, the kind of people who rarely made headlines but moved things that mattered. When Arnold entered, no one stood. They didn't need to. He hung his coat on the back of his chair, sat, set the notebook, Lucas's notebook, down in front of him. They began. No speeches, just strategy. Outside, the day got brighter, the traffic louder. But inside that room, something steadier was forming. Not revenge, not noise structure. Back home, Arnold stepped into his study just before noon. The sun cut across the desk in a thin diagonal. He opened the drawer and took out the notebook again. This time, he opened it, not to the first page, to the last. There, in Lucas's handwriting, not perfect, just rushed and young, was a single sentence. Don't change the world. Remind it. Arnold sat for a long time, looking at it. He didn't cry, but he didn't move, either. Eventually, he closed the book, slid it back into the inner pocket of his coat, on the shelf nearby. A photo, Lucas holding his camera, smiling at something off frame. Arnold stared at it for a moment, then whispered, not loud enough for anyone to hear. You'd have liked how it ended. He left the house shortly after, and somewhere downtown, a table by the window remained unmarked, unclaimed, but no longer invisible. Because sometimes, a man doesn't need to raise his voice to leave something behind. Sometimes, he just needs to refuse to move. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.